Welcome to my series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is a spiritual master for our times. His life, work and teachings have spread across the globe, touching the lives of millions of people. His patented technique of the Doordarshan Kriya is an important tool of personal transformation for people in India and more than 145 countries around the world. I'm delighted to welcome Sri Ravi Shankar. Much of the spiritual quest and our craving really is the pursuit of happiness, in a sense. And I think that because of the influence and impact so much of globalization and Western culture, that we often look at happiness as the pursuit of the American dream, and that is the dominant culture in a sense. What is happiness? And very often we experience maybe equanimity, some happiness, and then something happens and it goes out of the window. A master such as you is an enduring presence of continuing perpetual happiness. So what is happiness and how do we achieve it in an enduring kind of way?
I see happiness is our very nature. Like peace and happiness is what we are made up of, really. So the quest is the quest towards the self. Every individual at some point or other in life wants to know the truth. What is truth? What is ultimate reality? Where am I going? And these questions, I feel, is a sign of maturity, and it should dawn in everybody.
But yet that sort of pursuit of the self, goes through labyrinths and many pathways. You were a young boy, and it was believed that you were reciting Vedas when you were 4 years old. You went through a sadhana in some senses with Maharishi Mahesh. I was amazed to read that you have a degree in advanced physics. So that was a journey before the week 10 days of silence, in a sense, which brought to you the Sudarshan Kriya, enlightenment, or a peak experience, or however you choose to describe it. What is this journey to happiness that the average person such as myself might aspire to?
Broadening one's vision about life, seeing life in context with the cosmos. Billions of years have passed and billions to come. And what's after all our life, about 60, 70, 80 years of life. So when you see your life in context with the enormous space and time, the awareness broadens. Compassion flows naturally. And then commitment to do something good in the world springs forth from it.
So would you then say that the driving aspect, as my primary interest is in Buddhism in some ways, is that of the Bodhisattva, someone who goes out and seeks to help and serve other people, and that as a source of happiness?
It's a result of happiness, I would say. It can be both path and the result of happiness. So when you're content, when you're happy, you want to share it with. The nature of joy is to share with others. Joy has a tendency to spread, and whenever someone is genuinely happy, joyful from within, they want to just share with the whole world.
I'm trying to sort of draw and understand a distinction between the kind of enduring, permanent state of happiness that a master such as you obviously experiences and visibly, is seen to experience that, and the kind of transitory joy. So if I see a movie, I feel happy, or I get an insight or a flash of something and I feel happy, and then something happens and that happiness flies out of the window. What are the processes that this happiness can be permanent, perpetual, enduring?
Knowing that everything else is temporary, everything fades away. All the events, none of the event is permanent. Events just pass, they all move away. So then there's something deep inside you which is a reference point of all changes in life. And that's it. When we get stabilized in that, or a glimpse of it, makes you unshakable from within.
So you use two phrases here, glimpse of it and stabilized in it. I think that many practitioners, and particularly if you do the Sudarshan Kriya and many of your teachings, that there is the occasional glimpse. Now, what does it take to stabilize in that glimpse so that happiness is permanent and enduring?
Everyone is unique in this creation. Everyone is unique. What I say is not to be perturbed if you are perturbed. Usually, if you get upset because you got upset. There's no need of it. Then just be a witness. The first step is to be witness of even if you are upset. Okay, it's part of life. You don't need to be happy all the time. If you become unhappy from time to time or now and then, just accepting it brings that shift. Then it becomes such that your smile, that nobody can take it away from you.
Do you sometimes experience unhappiness and anguish?
When I went to see the tsunami victims, I can't say that I was all very happy, bubbly there. Of course, what was happening with their pains, you definitely reflect on it, but it doesn't stay in you. You are really sensitive, become rather super sensitive. Anybody's sorrow, anybody's misery really touches you. At the same time, it's undescribable that there is a peace or there is a tranquility in you which doesn't leave you. The smile in you somewhere deep inside does not exit from you at all.
So what do you say to victims of tsunami and people who feel singled out for exceptional suffering? What do you say to them, to their faith in God, to karma? Why, very often they say, why does it happen to me?
No, words don't help. Words doesn't help. Just your presence. You be with them in a loving environment, in a loving vibration of peace and tranquility. They start experiencing that peace. So you can blabber anything, that doesn't mean much. But your presence speaks a lot.
Well, how would you reassure someone who goes through a process of extreme suffering, somebody who has spastic or loses memory or is a victim of war and bombs and terrorism or what have you, and the first response is, why me? What have I done to deserve this? And even if you don't verbalize it, how do you explain and understand that some of us seem to have a deck of cards that seem inherently loaded against us in life?
The person who is suffering, he asks the questions, but he really not expecting an answer from you. He just venting out his feelings. So these questions which come from such a feeling just want relief, not an explanation. They don't want theories to be heard at that time.
Is there a theory?
Yeah, definitely,
Is it just karma that, these are impersonal causality?
Yes, karma, the cause and effect is something, it's so scientific and it is there. You can't deny it. But what cause and what effect and how long it's going to be there and what is the impact of it and what is the remedy to it, these are all another dimension altogether. It's a deeper dimension.
Do you believe in astrology, that the sort of astrological influences that direct the unfolding of this? Because a lot of ceremonies, rituals, pujas are done at auspicious times, which are determined by the stars. So what role do you see for something like astrology then?
I see that everything in this universe has an impact on everything else. When a small homeopathic pill can impact 70-80 kilo body, and a radiation of a cell phone can impact the brain and the environment so much. Definitely the cosmos has an impact on the planet and the lives of people, on the mind. But unfortunately the science is sort of half science. Some of it is lost and people have misused and spoiled the name of this science. That is where one gets a little cynical about or sarcastic about the science itself. But I feel that the science is there and it needs to be explored, and all the cobwebs around that science need to be removed. Then it can be of real use. And especially like the pujas and japas. Japa is at 108 chant that number. Why 108? That's a question, Why not 101?
Well, why 108? Tell us.
You see, there are 9 planets and then 12 constellations, and they bring about 108 changes. So if there is any malefic effect of those changes, so for each change, you can make an impact also by chanting a mantra. This is what our scriptures say, the ancient scriptures, people have said. And you cannot dismiss any of this unless you put them into test. You have to practice and see whether this is true, whether this is true to me. It may be true to somebody else. Whether it applies to me or to my life, every individual has to tread the path.
Okay. We were talking about the science of astrology, and I mentioned that you had studied advanced physics before you pursued or sort of expressed this vocation of yours. There is a great deal of sort of semantics and sort of almost rhetoric about the meeting ground between science and spirituality. And you talked about how if something happens in some part of the world, it has a reflection somewhere else. This has resonances of quantum theory, of a whole range of notions in Western physics. To what degree do you sort of feel or use or feel that scientific empiricism, and in what ways does it equate with spiritual empiricism, because that is experience and something is the microscope, and what is the relationship between these two empiricisms?
In India, we never had divisions of sciences. It was never thought this is spirituality and this is material. We had a holistic approach. That's why our ancient rishis even said, Padartha Jnanad Moksha. Even understanding an atom thoroughly brings you to enlightenment. And we talked about Tattva Jnana, knowing the principles. Your spirituality is full of Tattva Jnana, means principles, or the 5 elements. You can't have Indian spirituality without 5 elements, and then the Ahankara, Tattvas, the Ashtaprakriti. If you open Gita, you will see that there's a lot of science about Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, many things about material science and about the spirit. Prakriti and Purusha, the matter and spirit were taken together in the darshanas, Indian philosophy. So they never were separated. I would say science is to know what this is, and spirituality is to know who am I. This and me, the subject and the objective knowledge, is what you can broadly classify as science and spirituality. In the Orient, we always said experience first and then faith later. But in the Occident, they used to say faith first and then someday in the future you will have experience. The paradigm of both science and spirituality in Orient has been the same. Science also says first you experience, then you formulate the theory about it. But in the West it has been different. That's why in the West science and spirituality were in loggerhead, but never once in the East.
But at a time when scientific empiricism seems to be the dominant force and influence on the planet, would you be willing to change, say, some of the assumptions of the intuitive knowledge, of the knowledge of the self? For example, if science were to disprove reincarnation. I mean, I think at the moment science hasn't been able to prove it doesn't exist, or that some facet, for decades, we believed that the world was flat, and then science came around and told us it isn't. In some religions, sort of contemporary issues such as whether evolution versus creation is in conflict because science said something and religion said something. How would you resolve these dichotomies if they were to come up in your teachings and in the authority of the scriptures?
See, in India we always believe the round earth is spherical. We always said Khagola, Bhugola, everything is, even the names of the whole knowledge has been spherical. Khagola, it's all, the cosmic sphere. and the earth is always considered sphere. If you go and see the art sculptures of Varaha carrying the earth on it, much before Galileo, we knew that earth is round. So it's nothing new for us. When it comes to reincarnation, as you said, today the science has in some way accepted reincarnation. Even if you go by the first law of thermodynamics, that energy and matter can never be destroyed. So the mind is energy that continues. And past life regression is used as a therapy in most of the clinics around the world today to heal people, to cure people. So it's beyond doubt now they have accepted that the consciousness is a continuum. So wherever there is a conflict, you have to wait and see and go logically. Scientific. Our shastras never ask anyone to blindly accept anything. They say you go scientifically, logically, and if it comes to your experience, then only you accept those truths. Never accept anything because I say it. Even Krishna tells this to Arjuna. This is what I know I have said. But Vimarsha, you think about it. You take your own decision. That freedom of thinking is encouraged. And the questioning spirit is encouraged a lot. As long as any tradition keeps alive its questioning spirit, the quest alive, it cannot become dogmatic or fanatic.
You recently in Bangalore celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Art of Living, and there was something like between 2.5 to 3 million people who came. Does it sometimes worry you that there are that many people who have just reposed unconditional faith in you, and you're saying, question me, and they're saying no?
Nothing worries me. Because it's the one spirit, one divinity that works through everybody. And I don't do anything that's not in my nature. If I don't know something, I'll simply say, I don't know. And whatever I know, I don't hesitate to share with everybody. And I never speak anything that's not in my experience. That's not in my nature. So I'm free.
But do you find that certitude or the insights of today change, and that you may come to different understanding or insights or perspectives 5, 10 years down the line? Or does the peak experience that you experienced and or enlightenment or whatever, nirvana, whatever phrase you want to describe, puts you on this sort of plateau of all-knowing?
The non-changing is non-changing, otherwise it is no non-changing. The non-changing stays forever. On the periphery there is a lot of changes that do happen. And because we can know the human consciousness, the ability to be in the space of non-changing, yet be with the changing things around, it's doubly beneficial.
But isn't it interesting that modern science will tell you that it's not non-changing, it's a dynamic, changing, expanding universe.
Yes, but there is something, the reference point of the changing has to be non-changing. You can't even say that something is changing if there is no reference point. And that reference point deep within everybody is not changing.
But even in that, in our traditions, certainly in the tradition of non-duality, it is that truth is relative. There are different perspectives and insights. It's not frozen. Science will also tell you that reality depends on the viewer and where the viewer is located and who is looking at it.
Correct.
So how do we sort of reconcile this to the unchanging, the Brahman, or whatever word you want to use?
Our philosophy says two things. One is the charachara jagat, the changing and unchanging world, and then the sakshi tattva. you know, the Sakshi Bhut, or Chaitana, which is non-changing. Both have their place.
I guess sort of, whenever one of us, or any one of us, or most of us have the privilege of, talking to a spiritual teacher, inevitably sort of begins to sort of raise the questions of, that I started with, and whether you say, how can I be happy, how can I be a better human being, or whatever. And you have recommended realizations and insights, and from altruism to an understanding of the self to an insight of the unchanging. But the struggle becomes, what are the methodologies that I can use? What can I do to get there? And when I get there, how can I make this enduring and permanent? So tell me, how can I get there? Very often I realize that, well, even at the mundane level, that I shouldn't feel angry, I should do things for other people, and much of the time I'm able to do that. But sometimes there is pressure, or something cataclysmic happens and gone. So what are the mechanisms, the structures, what journey, and what do I do?
You are asking what are the tips?
What do I do? No, not instant tips, because I think that we are losing this whole tradition of sadhana, that where things take time and effort, and it isn't a weekend course to enlightenment, it's a process.
First of all, you should know whether you really want that, or using your sadhana only for some healing experience, some healing or some simple comfort. Are you willing to take a jump to something higher? Or do you just want to have a comfortable life? I usually say, it's like someone goes to an ocean and he is left with a varied choices. He can just go for a walk, take a good breeze. He can pick up some shells from the ocean. He can go for fishing. Or he can just go for swimming. Or he can go with an oil rig and take the oil out of it. So life is a possibility. And it's what you make out of your life. It depends on you. There is not one single thing. Like it's like going to a medical shop and asking, give me one medicine which would cure all ills. There is none. There is nothing like that. But when you need, your specific needs are there, time to time, those needs become gratified. And when you realize the real need in life is something higher, not just picking up some shells from the seashore, you see, then I would say that life has taken its final destination.
How would you describe something like the Sudarshan Kriya? There is this controversy going on between two yoga teachers, in a sense, and two schools. One believes that the practice, whether it is yoga, spiritual practice, or what have you, needs to be very individualized and personalized, because each one is different. And the other believes that you can do this on television, and a few 150,000 people at a time can do the same thing, regardless of what their specific conditions are. How do you locate your teaching and the millions of people who practice Sudarshan Kriya as a single technique?
There are certain things which everybody can do it. Certain asanas, everyone can do it. But there are specific things that needs personalized attention. So teachers need to be there and give them good attention and care. So that on television you can't teach Sudarshan Kriya. You need a personal teacher, a trained teacher to be with a person. And that's why it is taking longer time. But whereas some asanas, some general pranayam, Nadi Shodhan pranayam for example, is harmless. Anybody can learn them. Even watching television, Nadi Shodhan can be learned. Similarly, simple asanas. But if you want to go a little deeper into asanas, I would feel just television will not help.
Let's say something like Sudarshan Kriya. To what degree is it personalized? Is it culture specific? Is it age related? The condition.
Definitely different age people, and then according to their physical condition. That's why teacher sits with them, asks the questions and find out, and about how many minutes they can do, how much they can do, when they should do. All this instruction a teacher specifically gives them.
Sudarshan Kriya involves essentially working with the breath.
Correct.
And there's a great deal of literature and some insight on the relationship of breath and emotion and feeling and the mind-body connection. So how far does Sudarshan Kriya take you on this journey?
There is a rhythm in the nature, and then rhythm in the body, and there is a rhythm in the breath. And everyone has a rhythm in their thought patterns. If you observe your thoughts, at particular time or particular space and situation, a set type of thoughts come into us. And then there is a rhythm in our emotional cycles also. So, and there is a rhythm in our being. Sudarshan Kriya brings a harmony between all these rhythms. And so definitely there is some release of pent-up emotions, and then one feels cleansed from within. And so a guide or a teacher, for the first 2 sessions, it's absolutely necessary for a teacher to be present and guide them, take care of them. And later on they can do it by themselves. It's only first 2 sessions, 2 consecutive days. A teacher need to be present. Then they can guide them, they can give them explanation about all that is happening with them. Because it's such a big transformation that is happening in such a short time. So it needs a little reassurance, grounding and understanding. And that happens.
So, we've just sort of made this case in a sense against a mass instruction on television. But what would you say? You have hopefully a few million people watching this program, and like all human beings, also seeking happiness and wanting to avoid suffering, and they see to someone who has achieved that state. What do you say to all of us?
I would say you have all that you need. Have trust and faith in that divinity that's deep in your heart. And do whatever service you can to people around you. There is a technique to get depressed. First I can tell you what it is. If you just sit and think about what about me, think all the time about you, you can get depressed. See what you can do to people around you. And then some time to yourself definitely to do pranayama, meditation. Yeah. That can uplift the spirit, relieve you from all the day-to-day tensions. And sense of upliftment to your spirit will come. And that's why all this technique and meditation, upayas, what we call, are presented.
Well, finally, give us a sense, a lot of people consider you divine. You're often described as your holiness. What is your sense of the divinity?
I accept that, no doubt I am divine, but I tell them don't stop there. See the divinity in yourself too. Every single one is divine on the planet, and that will be very important to know and acknowledge.
So when we talk about divinity, we're always struggling to define it, give it form, substance, shape, and so we work with deities and symbols and what have you. And you have described it, to use the phrase unchanging. What for you is the understanding of the divine?
Well, the concept of divinity is to create sacredness. Something is sacred means the mind totally is there, 100%. So you take a book and you just take this cup. If it's just simple water, you just take it. But if it's Ganga Jal, see the attitude with which you take. You hold it with so much attention. If it's some book, you just take it. But if it is Gita or Quran, there is suddenly a shift in the awareness. To bring that awareness, the concept of sacredness is brought in. And it's just a upaya, it's a method, it's a technique by itself.
Do you have the faith that, or the belief, the conviction, the knowing, whatever word you want to use, that happiness, good, virtue, whatever phrases that we wish to use, will ultimately prevail in the world, or will we have to live with the yin and the yang, and that is in the nature of reality, that there will be some suffering and some happiness? Or is this sort of balanced equilibrium of everybody in harmony and happiness living a possibility for the earth.
Yes, nature takes its balance. Nature finds its balance. And opposites will continue to exist in the planet. You can never say one day it will become, there will be no problem at all in the
So
world.
there will always be some of us who are unhappy and some of us
There
who are.
will always be a mixture of everything will exist in the planet, coexist all the time. It's only bringing the balance. And even making that effort is also natural. It's spontaneous.
Guru, thank you very much. This has been a great blessing and a great learning.